from a man turning his birthday into a crime scene with body assault and damages to property.
The facts in the last case were somewhat, I use the term outrageous. So far, for 2025, you win the prize for the most outrageous set of facts.
To another who refused to respect boundaries and shamelessly stalked his victim repeatedly.
If you don't have lawful residency status, I'd be very afraid of being deported.
These cases show how Judge Jeff ensures offenders are held accountable, starting with Michael, who chose to celebrate his 18th birthday by attacking people at McDonald's, going as far as breaking an elderly woman's ribs in the process. Let's watch this.
The facts in the last case were somewhat, I use the term outrageous. So far, for 2025, you win the prize for the most outrageous set of facts in a case. This is file 242277FY, People versus Michael Bryant Steele. He's here with his lawyer, Mr. Luke Knopfinger. He was originally charged with larceny of building and assault and battery. He pled to 2 counts of assault and battery on the Walke family and also some of the staff at McDonald's. And the matter was set for sentencing here this morning. I'm glad the prosecutor's here. Frankly, I don't know what to do with this. I didn't order a pre-sentence. Maybe Mr. Knopfinger can enlighten me, but something obviously was going on here above and beyond what is readily apparent. Mr. Gabriel, we'll start with you.
Your Honor, you're correct. As I reviewed the police report, and more importantly, some of the information I've gotten from the victims, this appears unbelievably senseless. There clearly was something happening in this young man's head. I did note that in one of the victim statements, I think it was someone that worked with him, he said some pretty positive things about him and was hoping he'd get a second chance. However, as I reviewed the information I received from the Walkies, I don't know if he even understands that when he knocked the 72-year-old lady down, apparently pushed her once and knocked her down once, he ended up breaking her ribs. He ended up breaking the humerus off of her shoulder. This lady has undergone extensive medical procedures. She's going to physical therapy. It looks like somewhere in the area of $4,000 thus far is restitution that they're entitled to. There's some indication an insurance company might pay some of it, but they have no idea what or when. She has to undergo 10 weeks of physical therapy, and I think she's done 4 so far, and that's $30 out of their pocket. I was able to get the medical records. Fortunately, the husband in this matter, even though he was pushed to the ground and kicked several times and stomped in the chest, he didn't lose consciousness and he wasn't in any pain. Although obviously afterwards you can imagine he was in pain, but it doesn't appear that there were any fractures. So this young man really dodged a bullet, in that I think a lot of this medical information was not known at the time the charges were issued. I reviewed the police report, and it's kind of cursory that Milwaukee's, when one man was assaulted severely, didn't suffer any ongoing injuries, and that just indicates that Gloria was pushed and then knocked down. I don't think the office knew at that time the extent of her injuries, and clearly at a minimum it would have been an aggravated assault. The malicious destruction of the building, they're looking for $2,500 in restitution to restore the graphic and some damage to the drywall, but obviously the damage to the Walke family is much more severe than that. I also note that Mr. Knopfinger did file a Homes Youthful Trainee petition request. I verified or indicated that our office didn't take any kind of position at the time. And in light of what happened here, Your Honor, and the fact that he's going to have misdemeanors on his record, I certainly would oppose any further grant. that allows him to escape responsibility for this behavior, no matter how long the court might put him on probation. I don't know how these people are ever going to recover their finances. I even indicated to the victim witness unit that they might need to talk to a civil attorney and look at where other parties might be liable. They were just customers going through the drive-through window. And it doesn't even appear that the defendant was working on that day, but for some reason he decided to go there and be a total fool. But a total fool that hurt people. And I think there has to be some responsibility imposed by the court for that behavior. Thank you.
I saw you at the time of the arraignment and the time of the plea, and you seem fine. There's a line in the police report. I attempted to interview Steele at the jail. However, he was too heavily under the influence of an unknown drug to fully understand. So I don't know what you did before you went back to McDonald's. Maybe you guys can enlighten me. What happened, Mr. Knopfsinger?
Yeah, Judge, a couple of things. I'll kind of start from the top because there is a lot going on here. I will tell you, tell the court about kind of some of the things that he has done since. He lives with his mother, who's in the gallery today, Miss Brown, who's very supportive. Since that time, he has gone and he got a pivotal appointment. There was a kind of a timing issue. So that initial intake had to then be lopped over to the 15th. So they'll continue to do that. He did go across the street, Judge, and get involved with Covered Bridge. He has some therapy that he's going to, and then a psychiatrist maybe to help with some of these issues. So that's very good. I will go back to talk a little bit about what happened that day. This was Mr. Steele's 18th birthday. I think there was even a question whether or not, because that was his birthday, whether or not this was a juvenile matter or it was an adult criminal matter. And it's very clearly, and I think this is the only one I've ever had, was the Ida statute says on or after the defendant's 18th birthday. And this was, in fact, on his 18th birthday. It was a Saturday. And since that happened, he was arrested that night. He spent 17 days in jail until this court gave him a bond after he'd entered his plea at the preliminary exam conference. And having spoken to his mom, she went in and she had contact with him while he was in jail. He was acting a little bizarrely. There were times where he was in the restraint chair. And some of the things that he had said to his mother over the jail phone were very suspicious to her. They were odd. They were didn't seem to align with how he had acted before. It was the first time he'd ever been in jail. She then went in and sort of raided his room there and found bottles of Robitussin, some other drugs. And having spoken to him too, there's a lack of memory too in terms of what exactly happened that day. So I do think he was under the influence, explains some of that behavior. Doesn't justify it, but it explains some of it. At some point too, I think even some of his coworkers were kind of startled by the conduct. They were interviewed and tried to calm him down, and he didn't seem reachable. Went over the restitution figure. We're stipulating to the $2,500 for that to be for the entryway to be repaired, whatever needs to be done. Did just receive the figures this morning. We're stipulating we're not going to object to any of the restitution. Honestly, I get a little reluctant doing that, knowing that there could be more in the future as well. But I don't get any sense from my client that he's reluctant to be held accountable for the restitution. So we're comfortable doing that. We would ask the court, and I can understand that this would be quite an ask to be placed on Holmes Youthful Training Act. Along with that, we will be asking the court to impose kind of conditions above and beyond. He is going to link learning. He's a little behind talking to the administrator whether or not they will sort of move to the next semester to avoid losing some credits and some other things in terms of employment. Him and his mother waiting to see what would happen today. Limited because it's a one vehicle home. And so transportation will be an issue because his mother works full time. The short of the long, Judge, if the court wanted to impose those conditions on him, I'm hopeful he can comply with those. The other is that compliance with any substance abuse therapy. It's very likely that when he completes this pivotal intake on the 15th, that substance abuse therapy will be recommended in addition to the therapy that he's doing there at Covered Bridge. There may be some attention issues as well, which I think the psychiatrist at Covered Bridge can really help him with. He is a young man. When I went to visit him for the first time at the jail, Judge, he was, kind of taken aback, embarrassed, and I think most importantly, remorseful for what happened. He had no idea that these two elderly people had suffered broken ribs. I think, and that was kind of telling for me. And quite frankly, he was a little, even a week later after the incident, he didn't really, having met with him since, I realized that wasn't really him when I went and visited him. So when I started to suspect the drug involvement. Had several conversations with his mom. I think this is a wake-up call for him. It's the first time he's ever been in jail. So for that, we would be asking the court to consider the Holmes Youthful Act.
Mr. Steele, is there anything you want to say to me?
I have a restraining order on the two.
Let me ask you this. Do you remember what you took? What set you off on your 18th birthday like this?
I do say that.
What did you take?
It was a bottle of Robitussin.
All right. Just one?
I believe I took 4 prior to that day, and it kind of just stayed in my system.
5 bottles of Robitussin. Anything else?
And then I tried to overdose on Benadryl as well, which did.
How much Benadryl did you take? Liquid or Benadryl pills?
Pills, I don't know. The most I've ever done though was like 20, 30 pills.
So you've done this before?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you watch the video of what happened?
No, sir.
Well, it ain't good. The video shows a clear picture of what happened, which perfectly aligns with the victim's statements. Steele was seen walking into the McDonald's. He walks into the kitchen and speaks with several workers. He then pours a drink onto Larry Walke through the drive-through window. Steele confronts employee Draper and shoves something in her shirt and shoves her. He then grabs a large bag of food and attempts to flee out the east exit. Steele is met by Larry Walke at the door because he's like, hey, this kid just poured a drink all over me in my car. And Steele attacks Walke. Steele throws Walke's face first into the wall, causing a face-sized hole in the wall. Walke slumps to the ground and is able to get up, either from injury or age. He's about my age. Steele speaks to Gloria Walke and then runs around the building. He re-enters the building and jumps over the counter, re-entering the kitchen. He shoves Roman, one of the McDonald's employees, and grabs some more food, and tries to flee out the east exit. He shoves Gloria Walke. Larry Walke grabs Steele, and Steele slams his foot on Larry Walke's chest. He then shoves Gloria Walke out the door and onto the concrete outside. He then shoves Rosado, hugs her, enters the building a third time, knocks stuff down in the kitchen, grabs more food, then climbs through the drive-through window and flees. It's like reading about the Tasmanian devil from a Warner Brothers cartoon. I'm not giving you Holmes youthful trainee status. This all happened quickly from the prosecutor status. I guess we can review it because I'm going to put you on probation because you got a lot of money to pay. But they didn't realize at the time they made this charge and then the plea offer, the extent of the injuries to the walkies. Prosecutor Marvin and Andrew Rogas were still in the office when this happened in December, just before Christmas. And I arraigned you before the end of the year. And then I took your plea in January and I let you out of jail.
Sir,
Yes?
I was going to ask if I had a restraining order because I don't know how I can apologize to them. I would like to.
You can write a letter to the prosecutor's office or to your lawyer, and he can share it with the prosecutor and the victim advocate to share it with the walkies. I'm not sure they're very charitable toward you. Now, you weren't actually working. You were a McDonald's employee. Mr. Gabriel was sort of diplomatic about it, but there could be a possible cause of action against McDonald's. This is just terrible. The law used to be that you were an adult for criminal purposes at midnight on your 17th birthday. We had at least 2 young men here in St. Joseph County that were killed or were convicted of homicide while they were 17. One boy killed both of his parents on his 17th birthday, almost 45 years ago. He's still in prison. They changed the law a couple of years ago, and now you're not an adult in Michigan until midnight on your 18th birthday. This was the evening of your 18th birthday. Not a very good way to celebrate it. If one of these people had died, heaven forbid, you'd be looking at some sort of manslaughter charge. And I do believe you that you don't have a clear memory of this, but it doesn't make it any less serious. I'm going to do 24 months probation. No drugs and no alcohol. Test as directed. Cooperate with Pivotal. Cover bridge. Sign a release. You're going to stop goofing around with your education. You're either going to get a diploma or a GED, or I'm going to revoke your probation. Time to do this is now.
Yes, sir.
Call that dragging people over the finish line. Restitution of $2,500 to McDonald's. Fine is $0. There's a $75 crime victims' rights fee and a $50 state minimum fee. I'm going to put a $960 probation oversight fee. You may be on probation for the whole 2 years. No HIDA at this time. I suppose if you do an outstanding job on probation, prosecutor may reconsider.
Will court reserve restitution to the walkies?
I'm going to do it on the other judgment.
Okay.
I did one assault and battery and then a second assault and battery. One for Mrs. Waltke and one for Mr. Waltke. But yes, thank you. I think, was this a no contest plea, Luke?
I don't remember, Judge.
Look at my notes. No contest. And I do believe you didn't have a clear memory of this. In the first assault and battery, I'm ordered 17 days, credit 17 days. Giving 0 to serve. Right now, they're not taking weekend cases at the jail, and I let you out after 17 days. You got 93 days hung over your head. If you don't comply with the terms of this probation, you might as well just figure you're going to do the balance of 93 days.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, might I suggest, in light of what the court said, having gone to the University of Michigan 40-some years ago and finding myself in a similar situation, and the condition of his probation be that the probation officer show him and let him see the video at McDonald's?
Yeah, I've done that before. I had a drinking driving case where I had the view video. No contact with the Waltkes or McDonald's. Emily? Or any McDonald's. They're probably going to get sued because of your conduct. And I reserved on the restitution as to the Waltkes. We determine how much it is. Right now, you're not in much of a position to pay any restitution. Have you ever had it? Well, you had this McDonald's. Was this your first job?
No, sir.
Have you had a job since then?
Yeah, I detest with.
I mean, but not since then. What I want you to do is I want you to be in school. I want you to not dink around and get the credits you're supposed to get. If you're not going to go to school, I got a place for you to go. The St. Joe County Jail. I don't know what was causing you to drink these cough medicine and take Benadryls. Did you mix the cough medicine with anything or just drinking it straight out of the bottle?
There was a couple days where I just did pills. There was a couple days where I just drank the cough syrup, the medicine, and then there was a day where I just did both of them. But I do believe that the chemical compounds were still in my system.
That's probably true.
I think it made me really delusional, and it just...
Take this form downstairs to the probation department. No drugs, no alcohol, no assaultive behavior. Test as directed. Sometimes it's hard to test for these cough medicine things or other medications other than alcohol and or more common drugs, but we may have to do some careful testing. You're not old enough to drink, you're not old enough to smoke marijuana, and you certainly can't be doing prescription medications or even over-the-counter medications.
Judge, I think he's under a very closely watched eye at home now.
I hope so. I was tempted to just give you 93 days in jail, but I don't think this is characteristic of your conduct. And you're only 18 years and 12 hours old at the time this happened, but there were bad consequences. you're gonna see in living color what you did to these people and your coworkers. There were other people assaulted who weren't included in this, including the lady who shoved some food down her blouse, pushed one or more other workers or shoved them down. So there's probably at least 5 assault victims here, 2 with serious ramifications. You take that form downstairs to the probation department and they'll get started on what you need to do.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Unlike in Michael's case, Mr. Green is in court for blatantly driving while intoxicated. It's disgusting how some people know the dangers of DUI, but still choose to risk their lives anyway.
880 SD, People versus John Patrick Green. He's here with his counsel, Mr. Timothy George. I'm aware of Mr. Green. I've arraigned him. I've talked to him previously. He was working with Stoney Summy, and Dan Frazine, our probation agent, was on top of this case too. Mr. George, what's the status here?
Your Honor, it's my understanding the prosecutor has offered that they would take the second offense notice off and just do this as a operating while intoxicated with a high BAC. This will be a case that will be referring for sobriety court consideration.
Yes, we have discussed that. All right, let's break that down a little bit. You confirm that, Mr. Gabriel?
I will, Your Honor. That's our offer.
Drinking driving second offense is a misdemeanor. It's punishable by up to a year in jail and a fine of up to $1,000. Carries 6 points on your driving record and requires that your license be revoked. Operating with a high blood alcohol level as a first offense is punishable by up to 180 days in jail. Fine of up to $750, 6 points, and a license suspension. You could, if you go into the sobriety court program, be eligible to get a driver's license with an interlock. Daniel came to see me a few weeks ago and said, this guy really needs to be in your program. So by pleading to that charge, you would be giving up all the rights, including the right to have a trial, and all the rights that go with it if you enter a plea to operating with a high blood alcohol level. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
That means your blood alcohol was over 0.17. Anybody threaten you to get you to plead to this other than this plea agreement? Anyone promise you anything?
No, sir.
All right. I do know a little bit about this because I arraigned you. Let me go to it. Allegation is that you were driving a car on March 20th, so almost a year ago, right here at the courthouse parking lot. Took a long time for this to work its way through the system. It was authorized in April. You got arrested in May. Were you here at the court that day?
In March, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I was on my way up here to see Stoney Summy about going to Battle Creek for rehabilitation.
And you certainly needed it. Your blood alcohol on that drive was 0.305.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
And been working with
It's a
somebody
mistake.
since at 0.32, they have to take you to the hospital. So this was very high, but, all right, I'll accept your plea. Your house had problems also.
Yes,
Where
sir.
are you living right now?
I'm still staying at the Van Buren Hotel in Shipsy, but I am in the process of moving into the lake house over in Three Rivers.
One of the veterans' houses?
No, it's assisted living,
Oh,
nurses, and for my medical or for my medication and stuff. And Dan and I had talked about it, and he thought it'd be a good idea if I was around somebody where
I think so.
where
I
the
think
nurses
so.
are. And
Where is that facility?
it used to be Baldwin House
Okay.
up on North Main up there.
It's actually on Elm Street. It's
Well, it's up there where they put that new sports facility up there.
yes. Uh-huh.
I don't remember.
It's a very nice facility.
Yes, sir, it is. But I'll be in there on a temporary basis till COA or Bentwaters opens up. I have my name on to waiting list there too.
All right. I think you need to be around some people. Well, they won't let you drink there, so I'm fairly
Nope.
confident that will. Yeah, and it backs up to the new sports complex with the walking trail, and let's pick a date out of ways. We'll set both of these for the same day for Mr. George. Today is February the 6th. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be gone some days in February. Tim, I could do these, well, that's an interpreter case, so that might take a while. March 3rd at 11.
That works for me, Your Honor.
All right, I'd like you to go out to the counter. Daniel's been on top of this. And we'll discuss sobriety court.
Okay.
And if that works, good. If it doesn't, we'll probably have some serious probation. But you were gonna sell your house. Has that been discussed further?
Yes, I'm working with people over to Lake House to get it on the market.
All right, well, that motel has gotta be expensive. So this will be good. And there'll be people there and good meals and regular nutrition and somebody monitoring your meds, and that's all good. Set for sentencing March 3rd, 25 at 11. All right, you go out to the counter and they'll give you the information about your screening and sentencing.
This time we have Mr. Sanchez facing charges for assault with a weapon and reckless driving. This man's audacity to behave so poorly and rack up crimes is outrageous.
First case is People versus Mel Barrera-Sanchez.
El primer caso es el Ministerio Público versus Misael Barrera-Sanchez.
24885FY is the file number.
Número de caso 24885FY.
Jenny, I think I gave you Mr. Barrera-Sanchez's file with the earlier files. Could I, if you have it, could I have that back? It's 24885FY. Senor Barrera-Sanchez, once again, Vivian Montero is here with us to interpret.
Señor Misael Barrera-Sanchez, nuevamente está Vivian Montero aquí para interpretar.
And I swore her in earlier this morning.
Ella ya prestó juramento más antes esta mañana.
Ms. Montero, you understand that you're still under oath?
Correct.
All right. Also present is Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Gary Gabriel on behalf of the people. This
También está
started, I'm sorry.
Subfiscal Gary Gabriel está aquí por parte del Ministerio Público.
This happened on April 18th of 2024.
Eso sucedió el 18 de abril de 2024.
The defendant was charged with assault with a dangerous weapon and reckless driving.
El acusado enfrentó el cargo de agresión con arma mortífera y conducir de manera imprudente.
Failing to stop after a collision.
Y no paró en el lugar de los hechos después de un choque.
The defendant's driving privilege were also suspended at this time, but that was not charged in the complaint.
También el privilegio de conducir del acusado, sus privilegios de conducir fueron suspendidos, pero eso no hizo mención de eso en la denuncia.
The defendant entered a plea to 2 misdemeanor charges.
El acusado contestó culpable a 2 cargos de delitos menores.
Assault and battery,
Agresión con lesiones,
punishable by up to 93 days in jail and a fine of up to $500.
que conlleva la máxima penalidad posible hasta 93 días de cárcel y una multa hasta $500.
And reckless driving.
Y conducir de manera imprudente.
That one has driver's license consequences.
Esa multa conlleva consecuencias en la licencia de conducir.
It carries 6 points,
Conlleva 6 puntos
a mandatory license suspension,
de suspender obligatoriamente la licencia
and up to 93 days in jail and a fine of up to $500.
y hasta 93 días de cárcel y una multa hasta $500.
On that evening, 2 separate unrelated civilians
Aquella noche, en 2 eventos por aparte, los civiles
called this matter into 911
marcaron a 911 para reportar los hechos.
It started out as some sort of a dispute earlier in the evening.
Empezó más antes en la noche una disputa.
I'm not sure I even understand everything.
No sé si entiendo yo todo.
But the defendant had some sort of disagreement with Omar Hernandez Elbor.
Pero el acusado tenía alguna discusión con Omar Hernández Albor
Resulting in these charges.
y a consecuencia de eso le pusieron cargos.
Mr. Knopfsinger, what would you like me to know?
Licenciado Knopfsinger, ¿qué quiere que yo sepa?
Yes, thank you, Judge. I interpreted the facts as I understand them as road rage.
Yo interpreté los hechos como road rage, o sea, coraje en el camino.
Which is not an excuse, Judge.
Que no es una excusa.
But for whatever reason, it really it brings the worst out of people.
Por algún motivo sale lo peor de las personas en ese tipo de situación.
And it puts people at risk.
Y pone a otras personas a riesgo.
And having spoken to my client, he recognizes that.
Hablé con mi cliente y lo reconoce.
And he's taking accountability for this charge, Judge.
Y él está tomando responsabilidad por este cargo, su señoría.
He did spend some time in jail.
Y él ha pasado unos días en la cárcel.
And we would ask the court to consider that time.
Y pedimos al tribunal que lo tome en cuenta.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Mr. Gabriel, what's your thought?
Licenciado,
Honor.
¿qué piensa usted?
This appears to be senseless
Eso no tiene sentido.
in that if the defendant basically followed the law and didn't drive, none of this would have happened.
Si el acusado simple y sencillamente hubiese seguido la ley y no condujera, nada de eso hubiese pasado.
It's true that he took responsibility,
Es verdad que aceptó responsabilidad,
which I believe would have been done as a result of the fact that he was originally charged with a felony for the same facts.
creo que se debería haber hecho porque enfrentaba un delito grave
That he admitted.
y él admitió.
As the court's aware,
Como esté consciente el tribunal,
the witnesses indicate
los testigos indicaron que
that the final swerve towards the victim
cuando se movió el vehículo hacia la víctima,
resulted in the victim ending up in the lane facing ongoing traffic.
que la víctima terminó en el carril mirando en vía contraria, con el tránsito viniendo hacia él.
And there, but the grace of God, no one was hurt.
Pero por el amparo de Dios, nadie salió lesionado.
somehow the court must get the defendant's attention.
De alguna forma, el tribunal tiene que llamar la atención del acusado,
That he doesn't drive, period.
que no puede manejar, punto.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Gracias, señoría.
Mr. Barrera-Sanchez, anything you want to tell me?
Señor Barrera-Sánchez, ¿hay algo que querrá decirme?
Oh, lo siento por lo
I'm
sucedido,
sorry.
pero
I'm
ya voy a
sorry.
parar de manejar.
I'm sorry that it happened. I will stop driving.
Mr. Gabriel wasn't aware because the newest case is an ordinance case and he's the county prosecutor.
El licenciado Gabriel no estaba consciente del caso más nuevo porque es un caso de ordenanza y él es el fiscal.
But the defendant has a new ticket for driving suspended.
Pero el acusado tiene una nueva multa, nueva infracción por conducir con licencia suspendida.
From January 15th,
De 15 de enero,
right in the middle of town in Sturgis.
en medio de la ciudad de Sturgis,
Which I believe makes at least 9 prior driving without a license or driving suspended charges.
lo cual cree que él tiene 9 anteriores, conducir sin licencia suspendida o conducir sin licencia,
Plus 2 drunk driving charges,
más 2 cargos por conducir en estado de ebriedad,
couple of malicious destruction of property charges,
algunos cargos de destrucción maliciosa de alguna propiedad
and illegal entry.
y entrada ilegal de un edificio.
He's suspended about 4 different ways.
Está suspendido de 4 diferentes maneras.
Too many points,
Tiene demasiados puntos acumulados
implied consent suspension,
y suspensión por consentimiento implícito.
revoked because of 2 drunk drivings in 7 years,
Revocada la licencia por 2 cargos de conducir en estado de ebriedad en 7 años.
He also had some charges in Indiana that he failed to appear for, and Indiana has also suspended his license.
En Indiana él tiene algunos cargos pendientes y por incomparecencia y ellos también le suspendieron la licencia.
There's more to the story here that I don't understand.
Hay más a la historia aquí, lo cual no entiendo.
I think Mr. Hernandez Albor used to date Mr. Barrera-Sanchez's sister.
Yo creo que el señor Hernández Albor salía en cita amorosa con la hermana de señor Barrera-Sánchez.
And there was bad blood about that.
Y había algún problema sobre eso.
There was something that happened earlier that night at the Wings Etc. restaurant.
Pero algo sucedió más antes aquella noche en el restaurante Wings y etcétera.
And then later at the liquor store.
Luego, en la licorería,
There were also other people in Mr. Barrera-Sanchez's van.
había más personas en la venda, señor Barrera-Sánchez.
There's no indication here of a blood test or anything.
No hay ningún indicio de que le sacaron sangre o algo.
Nothing in the report about alcohol.
No hay nada en el informe sobre el alcohol.
But they didn't catch up with Miss L.
Pero no llegaron a donde está Misael.
So I'm not sure how much of a factor it was, but he didn't get arrested until quite a bit later, months later.
Entonces no sé qué gran fue el factor, pero no lo arrestaron hasta meses después de eso.
Then he got ticketed again just 20 days ago for continuing to drive in Sturgis.
Luego le multaron nuevamente hace 20 días por estar conduciendo nuevamente en Sturgis.
I believe Mr. Sanchez has pretty good English.
Yo creo que el señor Barrera-Sanchez le habla bien, bastante bien en inglés.
I believe he's a citizen.
Creo que es ciudadano.
Is that true, sir?
¿Es verdad,
sir.
señor?
All right, but you have lawful residency status or you wouldn't have a license.
Pero tiene regularizado su situación migratoria, de lo contrario no tendría una licencia.
In the current political environment,
En el ambiente político actual,
if you don't have lawful residency status, I'd be very afraid of being deported.
si uno no tiene su situación migratoria regularizada, yo tendría el temor de ser deportado.
Last year in 2024,
El año pasado, en 2024,
35 of 134 drinking driving cases
35 de 134 casos de conducir en estado de ebriedad,
we sentenced 135 people.
sentenciamos 135 personas.
And 35 of them were
Y,
young Mexican or Central American men without residency status.
y 35 de ellos fueran jóvenes de México o Centroamérica y que no tenían su situación migratoria regularizada.
And 12 of those absconded before sentence.
12 se dieron a la fuga antes del momento de la imposición de la condena.
I keep saying this because I'm trying to stress to the young men in Sturgis, they're putting themselves at substantial risk of being deported.
Se lo digo a usted, señor, porque usted se está poniendo en una situación muy arriesgado donde usted podría ser deportado.
Every time I talk to you,
Cada vez que yo hablo con usted,
it's probably been more than 10 times.
Probablemente más de 10 veces.
You are always very polite and very respectful,
Siempre ha sido muy cortés y muy respetuoso
and you express remorse.
y expresa que está arrepentido,
And then you go out and do it all over again.
pero entonces usted sale y vuelve a hacerlo.
Judge, can I add one thing too?
Yes?
Maybe more so for myself, but I did double check that assault, battery, and reckless driving is not a crime of moral turpitude.
Yes, I know that was a concern that you had at the time of the plea, that you were trying to protect his residency status.
Yo sé,
Just wanna make-
licenciado, que agresión con lesiones y conducir en estado de ebriedad primera vez no son delitos de vileza moral. Dice el juez, yo sé que usted está tratando de protegerlo y su situación migratoria.
And I respect that.
Y respeto eso.
Thank you, Judge.
Then he goes out and drives again right in Sturgis.
Y luego él vuelve a manejar nuevamente en Sturgis.
Not to mention the fact that this conduct is outrageous.
Huelga decir, la conducta de él es increíble.
The two ladies that called in
Las dos señoras que marcaron 911
were upset enough about it to call the police
estaban suficientemente preocupados, por eso llamaron a la policía.
Both callers reported to dispatch seeing a truck or seeing a hit and run.
Ambas personas reportaron al coordinador de llamadas de haber visto un golpe y fuga.
Both callers described a maroon or red van that attempted to run a truck off the road and then fled the scene.
Ambos reportaron que había un van de color rojo o color rojo vino que pegaron en una camioneta y luego se dio la fuga.
Then you swerved right into the van and hit the truck and hit the big tires.
Luego usted se pegó a la camioneta y pegó las llantas grandes.
And then, as Mr. Gabriel said, the truck went off into the other lanes of traffic going the wrong way down Chicago Road.
Y como dijo el licenciado Gabriel, perdón, que la camioneta se salió del carril, incorporó en el otro carril donde en vía contraria y otro tráfico venía hacia él.
On a Thursday night at 5:30 on the busiest street in Sturgis.
Un jueves por la noche a las 5:30 en una noche muy ocupado en Sturgis.
On the reckless driving charge.
Sobre el cargo de conducir de manera imprudente,
I'm going to order 61 days in jail, credit 1.
voy a ordenar 61 días de cárcel, crédito para un día acumulado.
The fine is 0.
La multa 0.
You have always paid your fines.
Siempre he pagado las multas.
The state minimum fee is $125.
Mínimo estatal $125.
Make that due by June 1st.
Esto se vence el 1 de junio.
And the assault and battery charge,
Sobre el cargo de agresión con lesiones,
I'm ordering 61 days, credit 1.
voy a ordenar 61 días de cárcel, crédito para un día acumulado.
Judge, just as to the jail credit, he's pretty insistent that there's 3 days of jail credit. I haven't checked the registry.
Well,
of
let's
acts.
take a look.
Su señoría, él insiste que hay 3 días que pasó encerrado. Bueno,
He
vamos a
got
echar un
arrested
vistazo.
on 12/16,
Lo arrestaron,
12/15.
lo arrestaron el día 15 de diciembre
12/15, and he bonded on 12/16.
y él pagó la fianza y salió el día 16.
We'll call it, let's just call it 60 days, credit 2, in
Entonces,
58 days to serve.
lo vamos a hacer 62 días, crédito para 2 días acumulados, que le queda 58 días para pasar encerrado.
0 fines and costs on the assault and battery.
No hay
Otherwise-
costos sobre el caso de agresión con lesiones.
We have the new case that we have to deal with.
Tenemos el nuevo caso al que tenemos que tratar.
I don't know if it's going to come to me or Judge Pattison.
No sé si llegará a mí o llegará al juez Patterson.
If it comes to me, I don't intend to put a bunch of more jail time on this.
Si me llega a mí, no pienso agregar mucho más tiempo de cárcel.
But for all the reasons I stated,
Pero por todas las razones que yo he dicho hasta el momento,
the outrageousness and dangerous of the conduct,
la peligrosidad en su conducta,
terrible driving record,
el registro de conducir horrible,
multiple suspensions,
múltiples suspensiones de la licencia
and a new charge subsequent to this,
y a un nuevo cargo subsiguiente a esto,
I think merit this sentence.
yo creo que amerita esta sentencia.
All right, you can go with the court officer. You're gonna do 58 days in jail, less good time.
Ya puede acompañar el asistente del sheriff. Va a pasar encerrado 58 días más tiempo, el buen tiempo.
Is our other guy here, Mr. Steele?
Yeah, he's in the hall.
Okay. This one, they aren't getting any easier.
Your Honor, is this all you needed me for, or did you have?
Yes, it is. Thank you. As he walked out, he spoke pretty fluent English. He's been here since he was in high school, but we certainly made sure that he understood everything. So thank you for your help.
You're welcome, Your Honor. Have a good day.